If you went back 5 years and you wanted to create a sports show, you needed a TV network. But these days, TV networks and streamers are coming to creators instead. So today I'm going to take you behind the scenes to find out, how does a podcast become a business? How does that business end up making TV? And what does it all tell us about where sports media is heading in this country? All right, let's get into it, because if you want to know what's really going on in sport, you've got to follow the money.
And now it's time.
It's time
For Moneyball. Moneyball.
Are you familiar with the story of Moneyball?
Hey team, welcome to Moneyball, the business of sport, the show for sports insiders and for fans that want to know what is really going on in the game. I'm Scott Keenan, and if you like the show, please subscribe on YouTube or give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Now, ESPN is launching a new NRL show on Disney Plus called Rugby League Central. It's pretty interesting for a platform that doesn't actually show any rugby league. And to me, it proves the game is growing and that media companies want a piece of that action. It also proves that the conversations around sport are becoming just as valuable as the live sport itself. It's being produced by the Buy Round podcast, which is a show hosted by former England Rugby League international and Triple M commentator James Graham. It started as an interview show and has quietly grown into one of Australia's biggest independent sports media businesses. And along the way, they've attracted major sponsors, built a production team, and they've now landed one of the biggest platforms in sport. Charlie White is the co-founder of the Buy Round and the head of Triple M NRL. You are one of the busiest guys in sports media right now, so thanks for making time to talk to us here on Moneyball.
Well, I'm actually an hour late, aren't I? So I don't think I deserve any credit for that, being an hour late. But great to be on with you, Scott. Been loving the podcast, absolutely loving it. I was listening to every single week during the NRL rights, finding out what's going to happen, who's in front. It's a great listen. So well done to you.
Good man. Thank you, mate. And I know you've got your finger on the pulse in the NRL as well, so keen to get stuck into that with you. And I want to talk to you about this big move for you and Jimmy Graham at the moment, this new show with ESPN. I feel like, maybe 5 years ago or so that this deal probably doesn't get done. ESPN probably just makes this show itself. What do you reckon's changed?
Yeah, it's really fascinating, isn't it? So the landscape's obviously changed, and you've covered a lot of this stuff recently on your podcast. But it is fascinating that a company like Disney Plus wants to get into rugby league. First of all, I want to say that because 10 years ago, if they would have said, "Oh, we haven't got the rights, what's the point of making any content around this stuff? We haven't got the rights." Move on with it. But I think now these companies are seeing the advantage in having rugby league content on their platform, and even if they don't have the rights, there's still people watching those channels and using those platforms that are really engaged in rugby league, and it appeals to a broad audience as well, the game. And there's people all across the country who just love rugby league and love listening to the shows and watching the shows. And I think it's a great thing for rugby league to be on Disney Plus as well, because that then, it gets people who might not be huge rugby league fans that see the show pop up on the platform and click into it. And I think it's great what they've done, Disney Plus, in terms of getting Rugby League Guru, who's got a huge following, massive following, and on all platforms. His podcast is huge, his social media is huge, his presence in the game is massive. And then Jimmy Graham, who's with the Buy Round, who has a huge following himself on the podcast. He's not very social media savvy, Jimmy, but he's obviously got a big social media profile, and I think
he's got a big head, doesn't he? He's got a big head, and you can't miss it.
He's got a huge head, a huge opinion of himself as well. But no, he's great to work with, Jimmy. I'm only joking, but it's great they bring these two, I guess, social media content creators, podcasters together, and then Shane Flanagan's been a great addition as well. So no, it's awesome to see Disney Plus and ESPN getting behind rugby league content creators.
Yeah, and Shane obviously brings that analysis, that sharp league analysis. But I think that the other thing that James what's the other guy's name? I've just mucked that up.
Rugby League Guru, Nathan Durkin is his name, but yeah, Rugby League Guru, call him whatever.
So that's the other thing that I think James and the Guru bring, which is that connection to their audience. Do you reckon?
100%. And then also I think the quality of production on these podcasts has been increasing time after time. So we've got this set, which I'm sitting on here, and you can see a little bit of it, and it's a TV set. It's what it looks like. It's been made by this company called Wild Sets, which do an incredible job in the podcast space. They actually designed Rugby League Guru's set, which funnily enough we actually share a wall. So next door to us in this office suite is the Rugby League Guru next door. You've got Denny Kemps on the other side of the office. He's in the same building. So 3 podcasters renting out 3 offices in this one building. It's quite funny. But yeah, the quality of the production's really improved. And I think they realize that they can trust companies like the Buy Around to produce this content and give it to them at a high standard. So yeah, it's a lot more expensive producing a TV show than I realized. Though we've got a lot of costs coming in, which is great to balance all that. But no, it's a lot of fun and really appreciative of ESPN and Disney for getting behind it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I suppose all the hosts now want a cab charge to get home after the recording now,
Exactly.
like back in the TV days. But we'll dig into that a little bit more in a sec. But let's go back to the start of the Buy Around, what it was like 5 or so years ago. Did you think that it was always going to be a business, or did it start out as something that was a bit more fun for you guys to kind of test out and play with?
Definitely fun. I honestly had no idea if anyone would even listen to it. It started out as an interview show, and obviously Jimmy Graham was able to get Sam Burgess for the first one. And so that first show, we sort of had no idea how it would go, and it got a load of views on YouTube straight off the bat. So many podcast listens as well, and it just started with a bang. And it felt like it was massive from day one, which is super rare. Like, I've started a lot of podcasts, been involved in a lot of podcast starting. It's a slow grind and you take your wins where you can get them. But this show started, I think it had like 20,000 people listen to the first show in the first 2 weeks of it, which was
wow.
That's honestly unheard of. Like, those numbers, they might not sound that impressive, 20,000 people, but that's an incredible start for a podcast to make. And that's not even including YouTube. It's just people who actually listen to it. So
yeah, wow. Those are good numbers, man. I mean,
bang.
it's hard. There's so much competition out there, and there are so many ways that you can spend your time watching or listening to something. So to find an audience so quickly is super impressive. But was there a moment after that, 3 months, 6 months, where you thought, hang on, this could actually be a business?
Yeah. Well, I think when we sort of got our first couple sponsors coming in, and then it was like, oh, hang on a minute, like, people are paying to sponsor the show. And then a company reached out to us and said, hey, we really want you guys to do a preview show because we feel like it really aligns with what we're about and stuff. So that then we added that extra show. And at that point, we were still sort of catch and kill of like where we even recorded the podcast. We'd recorded at Hello Sport Studios. They were really kind, and we used their studio just for free in the early stages. And then we used Bloke in a Bar. But it was probably when we got our first big brand deal, that was Ladbrokes, sort of the start of 2023. That then made it feel like, oh no, there's actually stuff there, because the first few sponsors were just sort of smaller stuff. But then by the time Ladbrokes jumped on in 2023, we were up to 2 shows a week, and then we added Brandon Smith to the fold as well. And yeah, that's when it felt like, we could actually do this for a living and it can become a business. And now we're at this point now where producing TV shows, and we've got a podcast studio that we rent out in here as well, which a few podcasts use. And we've helped them on Toys podcast out as well. We've partnered up with them. So now it's like a proper business, whereas we've got someone who started full time with us this year, Jordan Weir, who's been a huge addition to the crew here. So yeah, now it does definitely feel like a business, but it probably took about that first big deal coming in to think like, hey, yeah, we can make something of this.
And do you remember when you and James first agreed to pay yourselves?
Yeah, I mean, even now that's a bit funny at times. We just sort of, the payment that we receive is all very relaxed, and it's still probably very unbusinesslike in terms of how we pay ourselves. But yeah, I remember when we got our first, I think I got $1,000 sent to my bank account, and I was like, yeah, this is awesome. We did that. $1,000, yeah, that was great for just a month of recording a podcast. That was awesome. But yeah, now we've got like a different, revenue structure and things like that. But I think I remember that first $1,000 hit my bank account, and I thought I'd made it. I was like, yeah, this is unreal. Getting $1,000 a month extra for doing this. This is amazing.
It's good, isn't it? And when you're doing something you love as
cool.
well, it is good. And I know you're balancing it with other interests as well outside of the Buy Around. But can you give us a little bit of an insight into like how the kind of the revenue streams are structured? Like, obviously on YouTube, and there'd be a little bit of money coming in from there. But where would most of your money as a business be coming from?
Yeah, so most of our money, probably about 80% of our revenue, comes from brand deals. So that's working with brands. So for the Buy Around, it's Hyundai, Ladbrokes, Macca's, NordVPN, a few other brands in there as well. We did some stuff with Great Southern Bank this year. We do some stuff with Westpac for Say Less with Millie Elliott, Keely, Nizza, and Liv Koenig's podcast as well. So that's probably about 80% of our revenue. Then we've probably now we're sort of getting to the point where maybe 5% of our revenue comes from renting out the studio. And then we've got another probably 10% from YouTube and things like that. Because YouTube is quite good. YouTube pays a CPM of around $13 per 1,000 impressions. So
It's not too
it's a
bad.
decent little. No, it's not too bad. It's a decent little steady income that comes in, and that's something that creators can just press play on. And as long as you have 1,000 subscribers, you're away. Then at that point, you don't have to do any thinking, any pitching of yourself, because that was kind of the hard thing as well as when we started is you have to do these big pitches about why your show should be sponsored. And that's why most creators will lean on a sales representative or a major network to do the sales for them. I actually don't mind doing sales. I quite find it quite like fun talking to people and trying to get the deal done and hoping that you can, pitch yourself correctly and finding what that brand wants and making sure that the show can deliver it. And so I don't mind doing sales stuff. I've found it easy. Some creators don't like doing it.
Well, hearing what
yeah.
what you're like on Triple M and on the buy round, Matt, I think you sound like quite an entrepreneurial person, and like I think when creators can get close to the brands that they are going to represent, it's like a much better solution and situation because you know exactly what the client wants. You can help to deliver that in a way that it's a bit harder to do through a middleman. So I think that is a good way to go. What do you reckon? What do you reckon's changed in the business? You said you've got at least one employee there. What do you reckon's changed since somebody else's wage depends on it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's an extra pressure involved with that for sure, because like for the first couple of years, we were very unprofessional. It was record the podcast, hope it goes well, and then that was it. You should see this old studio we had in Paddington. It was an absolute dump. There was mold all over the walls. There was every time we opened the door, there was cockroaches and the smell of mold hit your face. There was one time where Andrew Abdo came in to do a chat with Jimmy, and we always were hoped that the person we were interviewing didn't need to use the toilet, because if they did need to use the toilet, they had to walk through basically flooded sewage to get to the toilet. And I remember Andrew using the toilet, and we just felt so embarrassed that he had to walk through that to use the toilet. So that was very unprofessional for a while, but now.
So it was like the Leichhardt Oval of podcast studios.
Yeah, it was a Leichhardt Oval of podcast studios. As Brent Reed says, you couldn't even put lipstick on a pig, I think he calls Leichhardt Oval, the renovations.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
I don't know if you could do much with that space ever, but yeah, there's definitely a more of a pressure to perform, and also you want it to go well as well, and you become really competitive with it, and you want it to perform well, and if you have these successes, they only sort of give you that feeling of success for a short period of time, and then you need to chase the next thing, because that's the hard part about running a business is yeah, you can have the wins, but they sort of become irrelevant really quickly because you're constantly chasing your tail. You constantly need to find for revenue, you need to find new streams of revenue, or like even you think about what's going to happen with the wagering laws, and it's still all quite up in the air. But for someone like us, that could potentially eliminate around 40% of our revenue could be gone from that, which would be a huge challenge. And if it happens, it happens. That's the nature of running a business. There's nothing you can do about it. If something like that, it's government legislation, you can't do anything about it, but it would be a challenge for sure.
Yeah, and I guess when one door closes, another door opens, right? Like you might then have opportunities for other brands to come in.
Absolutely.
What does the business look like today? Can you give us just a really quick snapshot of, like how many people, who you're working with? Do you have contractors that work with you as well? Like what does it look like inside the buy round?
Yeah, for sure. So at the moment, it's obviously because we're doing this TV show, there's quite a few contractors involved because we have zero television production experience from the crew in here, from myself, Jordan, Anthony, and James, who are in here every day. So in here, like with the everyday running of the business. But so we've got probably about 4 or 5 contractors that work for us weekly. We've got one full-time employee in Jordan, and then we've got a couple different sales representatives that do some extra stuff for us, some extra outreach and things like that. And then we have 4 or 5 podcasts who rent the studio each week, who come in here and use the studio. And then we have 2 other podcasts that we are partners with. So that is the Montoya's podcast and Say Less with Millie, Keely and Liv. Now, we aren't really looking to expand in terms of podcasts that we partner up with, unless it's how we describe it now is if it's a tier 1 opportunity, we would pursue it. So the Montoya's podcast jumped on this year, and we viewed that as a tier 1 podcast with potential to grow and become one of Australia's biggest podcasts. And also we saw the tie-in with who they are, and we think we can, they have a huge revenue opportunity as well, and we think we can help them get there, which we have done this year in terms of Patreon. But yeah, there's probably about 7 or 8 people involved in the running of the business, and then there's a bunch of different podcasters coming through.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think people probably wouldn't appreciate how many people it takes to kind of put all of this together, and there's so many things that happen behind the scenes that kind of help bring to life what it is that you guys are doing. And like you said, when it started out, I'm sure it was probably just you two with a microphone, and then you've added video, and now you're on YouTube and producing shows for television, producing other podcasts. It takes time and effort to do that, and it takes resourcing to do it too. Mate, let's get into the Disney Plus deal with ESPN. I want to know who rang who. Did you pitch to Disney, or did they come knocking on your door?
So they called me. And they had a meeting with Patrick and Elliot from ESPN and Disney, and they basically explained that they had an AFL show up and running, and they wanted to do something similar in the NRL space. And then it just sort of started from there. They were also speaking to Rugby League Guru at the same time. They always wanted him to be the host of it. They really love the way he hosts, and as I said before, his access to his audience is huge. And then basically, I then came in to help find other talent for the show. And then at first, it wasn't necessarily going to even be by around producing the show. They just sort of had the preliminary meeting about finding some talent for the show. But then, I said we can help with it all, and that's where it went. So they were really keen to get into the NRL space, which is fantastic, as I said earlier, for the NRL, because Disney is the second biggest streaming platform in Australia, and it has global reach as well. Like it's a huge achievement for the NRL that it is on Disney Plus, and they want us to be on Disney Plus. So that's how the conversation started.
Yeah, I think it also says a lot, doesn't it, about the conversations that are happening around sport and how broadcasters and streamers want to be a part of that, as well as the live sport content as well.
Yeah, for sure. Content isn't just the game broadcast anymore. It's so much to it. I think Rugby League does a really good job of staying in people's mind from Monday to Thursday, even though there's no games on. There'll be the podcast space in NRL is really developed. You actually compare it to the AFL space, and NRL is miles ahead of the AFL in terms of that podcast space. In the AFL, you've got Dan Does Footy, Dylan Friends, a couple other really good creators in the AFL space. But in the NRL, there's like 7 or 8 of the biggest podcasts in Australia are rugby league podcasts. You think Hello Sport, Bloke in a Bar, Levels, Backstage with Matty Johns, Cooper Johns, Jack Johns, The Buy Round. They're actually some of Australia's biggest podcasts, and they're all operating in the same space. And then you add to that the mainstream media stuff as well, with NRL 360 generating a lot of noise through the week, the journos for the Daily Telegraph and Sydney Morning Herald creating a lot of buzz. It is a 24-hour news cycle, and there are just shows everywhere talking about rugby league, and it keeps people engaged. I was speaking to a rugby union fan recently. A guy called Lloyd actually was just walking this building, and I had a quick chat to him. And he said, mate, I used to be a rugby union fan, used to love it. But the drama of rugby league, I just can't get enough of it. I have to watch all the shows every week. I didn't even like rugby league growing up, but now I don't even watch rugby union. I just watch rugby league because he's become so engaged in the drama that comes with it. And at times it can probably be sensational, rugby league media at times, but people, it's a soap opera. And people just love engaging with it. And I think platforms are realizing that, even if we don't have the rights, there's space for a show. I know, obviously, Channel 7 at the moment are doing a Agenda Setters, a rugby league show. They haven't got the rights to it. That would have been unheard of for broadcasters to be doing shows about a sport that they haven't done. It used to be, if we even got the rights, we're giving that no airtime. Forget the news. We're not covering on the news either. We're giving them nothing. Now they realize, it's interesting content, and it's content that people are engaged with also.
Netflix is doing it with podcasts. They've added a select few podcasts to their show. They've just extended the deal with The Rest is Football and Gary Lineker and the team from the UK. I think we're going to see more of that. And I also think the NRL has done a good job of creating these tent poles throughout the year of stuff that happens that is interesting, that isn't just week-to-week footy. The test matches, state of origin, finals and grand finals, the launch in Vegas and the stuff that sits around that, even televising pre-season games now. The season stretches so far throughout the season. And when you add in the player transfer market, which seems to generate so much discussion, I think it's not a surprise that there's so much interest in shows like this on ESPN. How long did it actually take to land the deal with ESPN? Because it sounds like it was sort of quite an organic process between you and them.
Yeah. No, it was really quick. So I went to America recently for the World Cup, and I had a meeting with them the day before I left, and then I got back and finalized who was going to be on the show, and then basically we filmed our first episode 9 days after it was commissioned.
Wow.
That's a pretty quick turnaround time. That was a pretty quick turnaround time. So that's
Impressive.
probably quite rare for something like that to happen. But yeah, so it was a pretty organic deal. It flowed really well. They've been great to work with. They love rugby league and they see huge opportunity in it. So yeah, and like you said, I think you're spot on with the things like Vegas. Like Vegas is just an incredible way for rugby league to get as much attention as possible for the start of their season. You can't miss that the season is starting when it kicks off in Las Vegas. It's impossible to miss it. And then for a long time, everyone has said one of AFL's big advantages in terms of news is the way they do their draft and player movement setup. You get this trade period. It's great. I actually think it's the opposite. I think NRL window serves the media better because you get stuff all year round, constantly. Like even last year, you think Brown and Smith switched clubs mid-season. Daly Chervin signed with the Roosters. Dylan Brown signed with the Knights. The whole of last year during the footy season, we're basically talking about player movement stuff.
And look, we're doing it now, obviously, with Perth Bears, with PNG, Jerome Luai out of the Tigers, off to Parramatta, then off to New Guinea. I mean, you're right. It fuels so much conversation, and it's great. It's great fodder. It definitely consumes a lot of how I think about the game during the course of the year as well. So when you were thinking about the show and you had 9 days from commissioning to the first episode, but how did you and the team decide what the show would look like? And I'm interested to know, how much creative freedom do you guys have in the production?
We have a lot of creative freedom, which is good. So we actually filmed a pilot first before it got commissioned. So the pilot was filmed with Guru, Shane Flanagan, Jimmy Graham, and then once that was commissioned, we brainstormed a bit on different segments with them, and at the end of the day, they have creative control over the show. Like if they want something, we will deliver it for them. It's their show. It's their brand. We're just here to serve as the producers for it. So yeah, they've got full creative control in terms of if they don't like something or want something changed, we will deliver that for them, because it's the ESPN brand at the end of the day and the Disney brand. So they've got to make sure it aligns with what they're doing. So we've got a good framework though in terms of what the content looks like, what the structure of the show is, and the things that they're looking for. They've been really clear on that. So it's easy to deliver it when they're giving us a really clear brief of what they're looking for.
That is good.
So no, they've been great to work with, yeah.
It's hard when you're working with a client and you're not exactly sure what it is that they're after, and you have to iterate and maybe not please them for a little while. Have you had to change the way that you make content then, going from producing, and you're still doing it, but producing the Buy Around podcast and then kind of pivoting to work in the ESPN way of doing things?
Absolutely. We had to obviously give the studio a bit of a glow up. You'll see this nice big screen there behind me. That was obviously popped there to put some ESPN branding on the show, and the cameras we use for our podcast normally, we've given them a bit of an upgrade as well to suit TV level production, because we're delivering this show in 4K, which is great. Yeah, so they're the sort of main things, and obviously we film it like a TV show, so it's lapel mics, little things like that. Like you don't want to have the big podcast mic, you want to have that nice lapel mic, but yeah, apart from that, it's minor stuff. There's a lot more work in terms of the production of it, because you've got to work on overlay and collate the game vision that we want to use for the show, and create graphics. And the guy that actually built the graphics is a guru as well. He's been fantastic. He's done a great job. So. Yeah,
so do you have someone is there anyone from ESPN like embedded in the team working with you?
No, there isn't. No. So we hired all our own external contractors for it. So basically we did deliver a final product. So they basically turn the key, the show's there, they publish it. And then we've obviously only published 2 episodes. So I'm not sure when this is coming out, but we've published 2 episodes to date. And then you'll see the second show had a lot of tweaks from the first show, just fine tuning certain things. So, but the crew's really good. Shane Flanagan is a talent as well. I think if he decides to not go back into head coaching, he's got a great few years in media, because he's been
it'd be so much less pressure. I heard him talking with you on the Triple M NRL podcast this week just about what it's been like being out of the game. I think you were talking about the potential for him to go in as an assistant with Benji Marshall at the Tigers, and you could almost hear the fear in his voice about going back into clubland.
Yeah, I know. Why would you do it? For him, as assistant coaches get around, say 150, 200 grand a year, something like that. So it's obviously a good salary, but he could probably make similar doing bits and pieces in the media, the odd sportsman's lunch here and there,
With a lot less pressure.
So a lot less pressure. Yeah, a lot less pressure. But he's a coach. Some people are coaches, and I think he'll end up as an assistant again, talking to him. I think he'll what his plans for next year maybe would be to be an assistant coach and do media as well. So wait and see on that space. Could it be the Tigers? Who knows?
Mate, you're in charge of the NRL at Triple M, which is great broadcast there, many days a week, and you've got your podcast going out there as well, and the Buy Round, a co-founder, and producing this show now. You're not exactly long in the tooth. You're still young and up and coming in the media world. How do you feel now doing all of that work and being involved in the production of a show on Disney Plus?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm not a huge reflector on like sort of where I'm at and what I'm doing. I'm not really that's not really my personality. I sort of more look to the next day and what we're doing. But yeah, you're right. Like I'm 31 years old, so I'm pretty young in all honesty. Like I think I only finished uni maybe 5-6 years ago, something like that. I can't remember.
Well, you've been, that's a tick up on me.
Yeah. So, but no, I'm not a huge reflector. I've worked at SCA for 10 years. An amazing company to work for. I love working for them, and it's great bosses throughout my time there who've been really helpful. And yeah, it's a good question. I haven't reflected on it too much is my honest answer, but just sort of along for the journey and, the next day see where it goes. But it's pretty cool. Like you're
working on great projects. I mean, you should be pretty proud because you're working on some great projects, and, it does feel a little bit like you've stopped building a podcast now and that you've started to build a media company at the Buy Round. You've talked about all of the things that you're doing. Is that what it's starting to feel like for you?
It is. And we've got a meeting actually soon to figure out exactly what our plan is, because it's happened so quickly where things change, but then we're not very good at like, oh yeah, this is our goal, this is what we're trying to do. It's just sort of going with the flow in a focused manner, but going with the flow. And I think we're going to sit down soon, myself, Jimmy, and Tony, who are all the co-owners of the business, and figure out exactly what our plan is moving forward. Where do we want to take it? Because I think that'd be pretty cool to just keep building it out. We're probably running out of space in our studio as we speak, because we've got a couple other sets in here now and more people coming through. It's kind of a bit of organized chaos a little bit, but yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool to build up a company and see where it can go. And the Buy Round will always be the core, but I think there's a lot of opportunity in this space to keep growing. And I think the advertising dollars for podcasting and I guess new media, whatever you want to call it, digital media, the advertising dollars have only just started coming, in my opinion anyway. Like you look at some of the biggest brands in Australia, and a lot of their strategy around where they invest their money is still in television and radio. And I think more and more companies are going to come and want to put their money into digital media, into podcasting. And I think there's a real growth opportunity still there. I think a lot of people say, oh, you can't start another podcast. There's so many podcasts. That I disagree with that completely. I think if you've got an interesting story to tell, if you're a great storyteller, if you find an interesting niche that people are engage with, and you do it in an entertaining and engaging way, I think there's opportunities for everyone. I think that's the beauty of the social media algorithm. You've got Instagram and TikTok. I've never posted on TikTok for myself personally. I could post a TikTok and your first one can get 20,000 views, 50,000 views, because the algorithm feeds good content. So the barrier for entry is gone. And when people say, oh, there's no room for this, there's no room for that, it's a real closed off mentality. I think there's still so many opportunities for growth across so many different factors for podcasting as well. Like even news, we saw Carl Stefanovic this year has created a news podcast, which is you would have thought, oh, there's so many news podcasts, news interview style podcasts.
There aren't really.
As if that's going to work.
But not in Australia.
No, exactly. And fancy an interview podcast focused on news being a niche that hadn't really been explored yet. It just goes to show like we're still in the infancy stage of all of this. And yeah, I'm super excited to see where it could all grow. And yeah, I think the more the more we think about it, it's probably building up a media company outside of just the Byron podcast, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's another one, another business niche, Fear and Greed, a business podcast, which over the last 5 years has gone from two guys basically in a cupboard to the biggest business podcast in this country. And they are just two individual creators. They came out of the industry, the radio industry, and they were, one was a business analyst, one was a radio person, and they've done that. They've found that niche. And I totally agree. I think what brands are looking for is for people that they can trust, people who are entertaining, but also that they can trust to be with their brand. And I think there's a lot of like short form content creators and a lot of people out there who start and stop podcasts, but if you build and you grow an audience, you grow the connection and you have a platform for trust, I think that's where the money will flow. Just on that,
100%.
The NRL has talked a little bit about, and I know James Graham talked about this with Andrew Abdo again briefly the other day, but I'm interested in your insights and your thoughts on this, Charlie. Content creators being able to use footage from games, from NRL games in the new TV media deal. I've been talking about it for the last couple of months, this new deal with Nine and with DAZN that the NRL has done, $5.3 billion. But for so long, content creators and podcasters and short form creators have been locked out of the content. Even sponsor partners of clubs have been locked out as well. And I don't know where they're going to go with that. But for content creators, what do you know about that, and what do you think that opens up for new media in this country around the NRL?
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? So Andrew Abdo, we had him sitting in this chair I'm sitting in the moment. We had him in last week on Sunday, and he spoke about it. And it's a thing. The content creators are going to get access to clips, which is just incredible. That's such a huge moment, because for so long it's been keep them out, but now it's like welcome them in, and the growth that they can create for the game by finding new audiences as well is massive. And there's no denying it. You see it in American sports with the NBA, the NFL, just basically pure freedom to use highlights however you deem fit. I don't think it won't become that for the NRL. We won't see a house of highlights NRL page just clipping up all the best moments and posting them. These broadcasters pay huge money, so they're going to want to keep access to certain things like that. But to have content creators, it's basically a fair use system is how it's been explained to me. So as long as it's not going crazy with the amount of vision you use and doing it in a positive way, I think it's going to be make a huge impact. Would I allow it if I was a broadcaster? I don't know. If I was Fox League or DAZN and I had access and I was paying an absolute premium for this, I probably wouldn't. If I was them, I probably wouldn't let them, and that's probably not what people want to hear, but I probably wouldn't let them use clips. I would probably be more strategic in how I let people use clips and whether that's charging people to use clips. So it's a huge rights deal that they've paid for.
I was going to ask you about that because the NRL has a media library of video footage and stills, and if you want to access them, you've got to pay for them. I wonder whether they might do some sort of licensing arrangement where you pay a fee and you get access to that library of clips for the season or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that would be fair as well, because some of these creators are making a load of money as well off this product. So they shouldn't just get everything for free, is my opinion anyway. I think they should probably be charged. And a lot of people will listen to this and go, like, why are you're a podcast, you should be thinking about that. But that's just my opinion. If I was a broadcaster, that's what I'd do.
Well, I mean, you also work for a rights holder at Triple M, and
yeah,
it's one of the businesses that's sort of in the mix and paying the bills. How long has Triple M got the rights for? The TV deal we've heard a lot about. You don't hear a lot about the radio side of things.
Yeah, you don't, do you? Because the radio rights are obviously a bit less important than television rights. It's obviously likewise at NRL HQ focuses getting on the TV deal done, and then once they do that, they move on to radio. And we've got the rights the same as where the TV deal expires. So the current TV deal expires end of 2027. That's when Triple M has the rights for, and then obviously conversations will happen soon to extend that. Triple M's got a huge focus on sport as part of its strategy. They signed a long-term deal for cricket not long ago, long-term deal for AFL as well not long ago. So I suspect they'll be keen to keep obviously the NRL as well. I'm not involved in that sort of stuff. I don't get involved in that level of stuff at Triple M. But yeah, hopefully they keep it, because I think Triple M does a great job of covering rugby league, and I think it's a great partner for the NRL to have that. They've got a daily show that it performs really well. The Triple M NRL Daily, great host as well. The guy who hosts it from Monday to Thursday is just a brilliant host. He does a great job.
Incredible.
Incredible. Yeah, incredible. Couldn't have said it better myself.
One of the best hosts that they've had at least this year.
At least this year, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Not necessarily as good as last year, but as good as this year for sure. But yeah, hopefully Triple M does keep the rights for many years to come.
Yeah, well, I read recently that you at Triple M are winning in the ratings with the footy call over the opposition, which is great. I agree, it's a great product, so much passion, and in people like Dan Ganane, you've got the best caller in the game, and I've always thought that he's incredible and what an asset to have. He's been with Triple M for over 20 years, and I hope 20 more. He's so good. So I hope there's more success coming down the line, mate. Before we finish up on that, like I said, you do wear a lot of different hats. How do you balance all of the different jobs that you're doing? ESPN, the buy round, Triple M. How are you finding that at the moment?
Yeah, well, it's quite full on. Obviously, I probably work 7 days a week at the moment. I probably work in 60 hours a week, probably about that. And for over a week, maybe a bit more some weeks. So yeah, it's pretty full on. The ESPN thing hasn't been too much of a workload addition, because I'm not heavily involved in the production of it, because we've got a team that's producing it. So that hasn't added like a ton of extra work or anything like that. But no, it's pretty full on. I'd say I'm probably working, 60 hours-ish a week during the football season. But when the football season ends, my work is a bit quieter, as the nature of the beast with rugby league. I sort of, from October, it's a lot quieter until about February. So I'm almost like a footy player in that sense. It's like
waiting for the off season,
footy season, waiting for the off season, waiting to go to Bali. But no, it's fun though, man. I love it. I love working sport. I love sport growing up. Like, all I would watch would be sport. So to be able to work it in the media side is pretty cool. I love it.
Absolutely, mate. No, very similar. Grew up that way too. Love sport. Love what you're doing at Triple M and the buy round. And congrats on the show on ESPN on Disney Plus. Couple of weeks in now, going from strength to strength, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the season on that show and all the stuff that you're doing there, mate. Congrats, and thanks for joining us on Moneyball.
Appreciate it, Scott. Anytime.
Moneyball.
Well, there's nothing I like more than pulling back the curtain on how the media works in this country, and that was a really interesting conversation about how things are changing in sports media right now. And one thing that stood out for me wasn't that a podcast landed a show on ESPN. It was that nobody seemed to think of the buy round as just a podcast anymore. It is a production company. It's a commercial business. It is a proper enterprise making money, and it is now a new media brand. And I think that is the shift that we are seeing across sport, because for years, creators have been trying to break into traditional media. And now traditional media is increasingly looking at creators who've already built audiences, who have a connection with that audience, and they have trust and production capability. They're trying to work out how to put all of that together on these platforms and on the stations and the TV channels that we all know and love, because the line between broadcaster and creator is getting harder and harder to see. And I don't think this is going to be the last creator partnership that we see like this, because if the last decade has changed how we watch sport, the next decade might just change who gets to make it. Big thanks to Charlie White for joining me on the show today. You can follow his work at The Buy Round on YouTube, on Triple M NRL, on the Listener app, and wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can watch Rugby League Central every single week with James Graham, Shane Flanagan, and Rugby League Guru. They drop new episodes every week there on that platform. And I want you to get busy in the comments too. Who are some of your favourite content creators in the NRL or the AFL? And which ones do you want to see making shows on channels like 7 or 9, on KO Sports or Disney Plus? For more shows like this in the future, I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on YouTube or follow Moneyball wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, thanks for watching or listening. And remember, if you want to know what is really going on in sport, you've got to follow the money. I'll see you next time.